In all honesty, I kind of stumbled into reading War and Peace. I started the book on June 7th, but it wasn't even included in my June TBR video. I didn't even own the book yet. It wasn't until I watched the Benjamin McAvoy video, I think it's like that's how you pronounce his last name, who's another great YouTuber. I highly recommend his videos. But it wasn't until I watched his video on War and Peace that it kind of hit my radar and I went down a long War and Peace rabbit hole, and it piqued my interest, and I decided to buy and begin reading it. I guess you could kind of say it was an impulse read, which is kind of crazy to think about because it's a 1,300 page book. But for some more context, at that time I was feeling sick and very fatigued and really just defeated. Looking back, I think one of the reasons I picked up War and Peace was because I was lonely and I craved an adventure. I craved a book where I could sink into and fully invest into the characters and their journey. And after reading this 1,300 page monster that so many people call the greatest novel of all time, I've come to discuss it with you here today. And toward the end of this video, I've compiled 7 tips for reading War and Peace that will hopefully inspire you to finally pick it up and not feel so intimidated by its length. So to kick things off, let's start off with a very brief summary of War and Peace. Preface this, I'm gonna do the best I can. It's a very long and meaty book, so this is just the best I can do. So yeah, here we go. So War and Peace takes place in 19th century Russia from 1805 to 1812. You could say to 1820 if you include the first part of the epilogue. But mainly to 1805 to 1812. We follow the wars between the Napoleon-led French and the Russian military with a huge cast of characters that interweave throughout one another's lives. Tolstoy shows us how the lives of our cast of characters change forever as the Napoleon-led army marches on Russia. It's a novel of conflict and love, the terrorizing but divine feeling of facing death, of free will and fate. And it's a novel that presents the human life with all of its burden, but also the beauty and sublime that come with it. It's not just a book about war, history, or Russia. It's a book about life and everything that comes with it. And because of that, even though it was written over 150 years ago, it feels like it was written for us today. Tolstoy gifts us a huge cast of psychologically complex characters. Let's go ahead and start with Pierre. Throughout the whole book, Pierre is after the meaning of life. He wants to know why he was put in the world and what he can do while he is in it. Early on in the book, Pierre's father dies and leaves his massive fortune to Pierre. Pierre almost seems indifferent to it all, besides now that he is expected to participate in high society, which doesn't suit him much at all. Out of all the characters, I would say I related to Pierre the most. Most of the book he spends in his own thoughts, ruminating on ideas and musing on the meaning of life, on what his purpose is. And you could tell he wants to be able to articulate his thoughts, but he first must live and suffer and experience life so that he can form his own ideologies and beliefs about the world. Pierre's development and journey was my favorite to read alongside with, and to take his own struggles on as my own as he battled with the meaning of life. Now let's talk about Prince Andrei. So Prince Andrei Bolkonsky, which I think is how you pronounce his last name, not positive, but Prince Andrei had a lot of similarities in terms of his developmental arc as Pierre. Although they were very different characters, Prince Andrei in the beginning of the novel wanted greatness. He wanted to be a great man, like Napoleon. But then towards the epic end of Volume 1, without giving away too many details, Prince Andrei realizes the insignificance of greatness. And after he comes to this conclusion, and after many adversities, he's left feeling empty and like nothing matters. But then he discovers what he has been missing. Many times throughout the book, he has to rediscover it, actually. A little disclaimer, if you want to come to the conclusion of what Prince Andrei discovers for yourself, feel free to skip ahead about 20 to 30 seconds in the video. I'm going to be reading a brief passage from the book, and if you don't, won't relay to that many spoilers, but I understand if you want to kind of discover it for yourself. The thing that Prince Andre discovers is love. Here's a passage that conveys his discovery. Love? What is love? Love gets in the way of death. Love is life. Every single thing I understand because I love. Everything exists only because I love. Everything is bound up with love and love alone. There you have it. All right, now let's move on to Natasha. Natasha is the youngest daughter of the Rostov family, and we don't really see much of any development in her until fairly deep into the book. And at first, Natasha really does seem a little ignorant to life and everything around her. And I couldn't see much depth in her until very deep into the book. But when we do eventually see some development in Natasha, we are shown how flawed yet redeemable we are. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Tolstoy's craft. So one thing I noticed about Tolstoy's writing, which was very exceptional and just grand to me, was his ability to zoom into the very minute details and then zoom back out to a grand sweeping overarching view of the story. One moment we're in the depths of a confused Pierre's head, but next Tolstoy pulls back to describe the sweep of Napoleon's whole entire army. It's astonishing. And another thing I noticed about Tolstoy's craft is it really isn't too difficult to sink into. Like, the accessibility was very easy to soak into. Granted, I was reading a translation. I cannot speak or read Russian, obviously, and I was reading the Anthony Briggs translation, so that obviously has some things to do with it, but still, I found his writing very accessible, far more than I thought it would be. So I want to do a little comparison from Tolstoy to Dostoevsky. And this is, I'm going to source Benjamin McEvoy. Again, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his last name wrong, but this is all of his writing that I got from him. So just to credit him where credit is due. So he compares Tolstoy as a sociologist and Dostoevsky as a psychologist, which I thought was very, very fitting. I just finished reading Crime and Punishment. I couldn't think of a better way to put it myself, but this is also from Benjamin's writing. So he says Tolstoy is a realist and crafts psychologically complex people operating in a universe no different, perhaps more real than our own. And in comparison, Dostoevsky creates characters, ideas dressed up in clothing and walking around a nightmare landscape. How true is that? So now I just want to go through 5 quick rapid fire takeaways that I got from reading War and Peace. So 1, very simple. Fulfillment is found in love, not ambition. 2, the joy of forgiveness. A little quote from the book. Sorrow is sent by him and not by men. Men are his instruments. The fault is not theirs. If you think someone has done you wrong, you must forgive and forget. We have no right to punish others, and you will know the joy of forgiveness. And 3, unhappiness rises from excess rather than deficiency. Takeaway number 4 is humanity is the result of millions of years of unbroken progress. And here's another passage from the text. The movement of humanity, arising from a countless series of actions arbitrarily performed by many individuals, is a continuous phenomenon. And takeaway number 5, short and simple and sweet and deep and meaty, is when love reawakens, life reawakens. So now you made it to the end of the video, and let's dive into, I think I have 7 tips for reading War and Peace. The truth is, War and Peace is an intimidating book, mostly due to its length. But if you approach it with the right frame of mind, I think you'll find, as I did, the real struggle of reading War and Peace is putting it down. The real struggle is the idea that it will soon be over, and you will never be able to experience reading War and Peace for the first time ever again. Tip 1, don't force yourself to read the book. If you force yourself to read War and Peace, it won't be fun, and you most likely won't get anything from it. Come to it with the right frame of mind, at the right time, and be excited to dive into Tolstoy's masterpiece. If you're already juggling 10 other books and have to do a lot of schoolwork, or you have a job, a full-time job, and kids to watch, and you just don't think it's the right time to read War and Peace, I wouldn't start reading it. You have to approach it with the right frame of mind. It's just what I've found. And it won't be a struggle to read at all. Tip number 2, go at your own pace. Read as much or as little as you want. There is no race to finish, and there is no book report that's due at the end of the month. So go at your own pace and take it chunk by chunk. And tip number 3 is pick the right translation. I'd recommend the Anthony Briggs translation. This translation has a reference list to all the prominent characters, which I found immensely helpful and was constantly flipping back to the list. And this translation also doesn't have blocks of French in the text, so it doesn't, which most other translations contain. This will allow you to lock into the text without constantly having to use Google Translate or flipping back to the footnotes. And tip number 4 is to befriend the characters. Take on their struggles as your own. Invest in their lives. Empathize and relate to them. Care about them like they're your friend. Tip number 5, which is a very important one, at least it was for me, is to read other books too. I personally finished 5 other books while I was reading War and Peace. It will give you breathing room and variety, so I would highly recommend doing that. Tip number 6 is to motivate yourself with goals and milestones. Maybe say to yourself, I'll read 1 or 2 chapters a day. The beautiful thing about War and Peace is that the chapters are extremely, extremely short. So it's very easy to break this book apart and take it chunk by chunk and piece by piece. And finally, tip number 7 is involve yourself with the book by annotating and engaging with the text. Engaging and wrestling with the text is the highest compliment we can pay to any author. So beat the crap out of this book. All right, that is all I've got for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it, or hope I convinced you to read War and Peace. Or I just hope you enjoyed the video. And yeah, that's all I got for this video. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing. If you have something to say or some feedback or something to add, leave a comment, or you can email me, whatever. And finally, consider subscribing to my Substack. It's free if you want it to be, and I'm going to be posting a lot more on there. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.